name is Mark Adler, and welcome to another session of the Canada Economic Forum. This September will mark the 32nd anniversary of the re-establishment of diplomatic relations between Canada and Lithuania, and ties between the two countries have never been stronger. Canada did not acknowledge the Soviet Union's annexation of the Baltic States, and was in fact one of the first countries to recognize the restoration of Lithuania's independence after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And Canada was also one of the first countries to ratify Lithuania's accession to NATO in 2004. Now, the two countries have a positive relationship on all fronts. And here to discuss that relationship and more, we are joined today at the Canada Economic Forum by Lithuania's ambassador to Canada, His Excellency Darius Skusevičius. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor.
Great to have you with us today. Now, Ambassador, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, Canada's relationship with Lithuania has really never been more important. Now, I want to discuss a variety of topics in our discussion, but perhaps you could start by commenting on the war and what it means for Lithuania, because there was some speculation, if you remember, particularly at the outset, that Putin would set his sights on the Baltic countries. Where does all of that stand now? And if you could comment on that.
That's a good starter. You rightly mentioned at the very beginning that we were forcefully incorporated into Soviet Union, and we were under the occupation for almost 50 years. Yeah. So we know what it means to live with that neighbor, and those threats were continuing and ongoing for all the 30+ years of our restored independence. So we understand the neighborhood we live in. Therefore, we were always one of the most hawkish countries in terms when we speak. Can we trust Russia, or what should be our next steps in relations? And history shows now that we were in most of the cases right.
Mm-hmm.
So if be it sanctions, be it we can remember just recent happenings, war in Georgia in 2008.
Yes.
And still 20% of Georgia's territory is occupied by Russians. At that time, we already were saying we cannot step back. We cannot get back to business as usual because it will be repeating. And then we saw 2014 with Crimea and Donbas region, and now we see unprovoked war from Ukraine's side started by Russia again. More than a year ago, active phase of the war is still ongoing.
Yeah. So Lithuania was used to this bluster coming out of Russia, but it wasn't just words for many years. It was actual occupation of your country.
Yes, the thing, I think even Lithuanians deep inside our hearts, we didn't believe that such things can start happening in 21st century. But now we are where we are. Not we set this scene, but we are forced to be part of it. And I think our response should be very clear. We should support Ukraine till its final victory, which at the same time, because some countries make a distinction here, at the same time means that Russia should lose.
Yes.
Because otherwise, history will repeat itself again. And this would mean that we could go, Ukraine could go into forced by allies, by partners into some kind of peace deal, which leads to 3-5 years of regrouping, and
Right.
same thing happening again and again.
Yeah.
Plus, this war it's a global thing. It's not a regional one, because all the other regimes are watching as well
Yes.
how Western world will behave and what will be the next step. Because that will set the rule what others can be doing in their own regions. Therefore, we should, continue supporting Ukraine by all possible means. And Canada here is doing a tremendous job in
Yes.
terms of humanitarian support, refugees, military support, macro support. Canada is doing really great things.
Yeah, they are doing a lot of wonderful things, and you're absolutely right in terms of the entire world is watching what is happening in Ukraine, and they'll be they're taking notes, and some of the aggressor states out there, particularly, are looking very closely to see what the world's reaction is, and thankfully the world has stood steadfast in terms of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. But I want to talk about one of the things that Lithuania did, which I think is absolutely brilliant, and kudos to Lithuanian government for doing this, was and so forward thinking, was taking yourself off the dependency of Russian natural gas. Can you talk about that and how that was done, and the LNG terminal? I think it's just absolutely brilliant.
So look, we understood that interrelations with that country is harmful. We understood that from the very beginning. But of course, to be able to get off the needle, you need to have infrastructure. And these were not easy discussions inside the country back then in 2012, 2014, when LNG terminal was started to build, because it was expensive project.
Yes.
And at that time, not all of the, not everybody in the society supported that, but now
really, I was surprised that there wasn't unanimous support for that.
No,
Interesting. Okay.
no, because it's politics.
Sure. Okay.
One government is building, opposition criticizing, expensive, too big, too small, too fast,
fair enough.
slow. Usual things which are happening in democracy. But now we see that it was one of the smartest decisions of that time. Of course, with European Union, with all the regional projects which are still ongoing, decoupling from old Soviet style grid and integrating into Nord-Balt pools with continental Europe networks in terms of electricity, gas, etc., etc. It's still ongoing, and we are still modernizing our infrastructure. But we understood from the very beginning that we should move forward as soon as possible, because that partner, small p, is not reliable one. And we should align ourselves with, and that was clear from the very restoration of independence. And that was a unanimous understanding in the parliament and political elite that first things to do is to integrate as soon as possible into European Union. We became members in 2004. Integrate ourselves into defense alliance, NATO. It happened in 2004. Integrate into other structures, as we are also members of WTO.
Yes.
Recently, we became members of OECD. We have common currency with Europe. It's euro. We are part of a Schengen area, etc., etc., etc. So there was a clear political will by unanimous will by all the elite to move towards the West. And I think what we have and what's the main subject of this discussion is natural move is to strengthen relations as well with Canada, which was very rightly mentioned. Canada was not one of the first ones. Canada was first G7 country to recognize our restored independence, and the trajectory of our relations is extremely good.
Yes, I'm glad you meant, because this is a great segue into Canada. And let's just focus a little bit first on the energy front, because LNG is something that Canada certainly has an abundance of. Are there any discussions afoot right now with regard to tapping into that Canadian LNG supply?
I think we saw recently a number of visits of our European
Yes.
partners to Canada to discuss possible next steps in getting Canadian LNG to Europe. If I understand correctly, it's a long-term shot. To be able to do that directly. Definitely, Canada needs to have infrastructure in the east of the country.
Right.
But even now, I can tell you, even now in our LNG mix, which we buy in the market, depending on the price. So LNG mix coming from US to our LNG terminal has in it part of Canadian LNG.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Okay.
So market is doing its job, and the more goods you have in the market from reliable partners, the more safer you are, around the globe, wherever it comes from. But yes, especially after this phase of the war is started by Russia, all the civilized world started to search for alternatives. And it's not only LNG. There are ongoing debates with Canada about hydrogen. There is a huge interest in Canadian fertilizers, for example.
Yes.
Potash. Canada is top 3 in the world, with Russian, Belarusian potash being sanctioned by Europeans. Canada becomes number 1, with exports increasing, with production levels increasing. Saskatchewan companies are doing a really, really great job, and Canada is literally helping civilized world to get rid of products coming from unreliable partners. Same with raw materials, critical minerals, all those ongoing debates. So Canada has a great role to play.
Yes.
And of course, we are interested to have more Canada in Europe and around the world.
Yeah. I'm reminded when you just said that, there's this bookstore in Toronto downtown where it says the world needs more Canada. And that's very true. That's very true.
That's very true. I can fully agree. And but our bilateral relations.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you next about. So bilateral trade, it's not great right now. It's okay, but it needs to be much more. And can you talk about that? Like, what we talked about, critical minerals, potash. What are the promising sectors? I know in the service sector, value has doubled over the last year or so. What are the promising sectors that will increase, will get that level of trade between and investment between Canada and Lithuania to the, through the roof?
So let's go a bit back into 3-4 years ago. Before my arrival to Canada in December 2019, right before COVID, perfect timing to come, and there were only few, maybe once every several years, there were some meetings between our politicians of two countries, and we, frankly speaking, didn't know each other as countries, as political elites.
Okay.
And just recently, we started finding each other because of changing world, because of need to search for the ways to diversify our economies, to find new partners, because of technologies getting us closer and closer together. So last 3 years, those relations are booming because, of course, because of what is happening in our region. For example, we had in those 3 years, we had two Canadian foreign ministers in Vilnius. Minister François-Philippe Champagne came right immediately after stolen elections in Belarus by Lukashenko to meet Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is official guest of Lithuania. And we had great 3+1 Baltics plus Canada foreign ministers meeting in Lithuania.
Okay.
And when ministers come, when they see the country, when they see the progress, which is really tremendous in 30 years to build the country from Soviet scratches, to build economy, to build modern democracy, it's something. So when politicians see that, they think, okay, we should do a bit more with this country. Then Minister Marc Garneau came to Lithuania for Ukraine Reform Conference.
Okay.
And then my foreign minister, was here by invitation of Melanie Joly, 3 Baltics plus 1, meeting businessmen, etc., etc. So last 3 years, we started to find each other. And when you start seeing the name of a country on the news,
yes,
you understand that, okay, something is happening with that country. And wise businessmen start looking, So finally, I think Canadians are finding Lithuania on the map. And Lithuanians, when think about North America, think not only about US, but also about Canada and possibilities here.
Okay.
And this relation leads us into economical cooperations. And I think we have a lot to offer to each other. Yeah. Canada is very diverse. Canada has everything. If we take life sciences, you have at least, 3, 4, 5 hubs in the country with different specializations, but really great experts and great businesses here. At the same time, Lithuania has exponentially growing life sciences industry. Yeah. With the aim to reach 3% of GDP in coming years, created by the industry. Fintech. Canada has great fintech industry. Yes. Lithuania is number 1 in Europe, in European Union, by the number of fintech licenses issued to the companies. And once you are in Lithuania, you are in internal market of European Union.
Right.
You are with the same currency. You have no limitations to operate around all the Europe.
That's right.
More and more companies are opening their global operations centers in Lithuania, be it Europeans, be it US companies. No big stories for now from Canada, but I think it's only the matter of time. And just recent entries into Canadian market, I can tell you, Teltonika, Lithuanian company, they deal with Internet of Things. And they are, for example, #1 producer of GPS trackers in Europe. So they just recently, several years ago, they opened their office in Toronto.
Mhm.
They do sales for all North America from Toronto. Their yearly budget
Mhm.
15 million and growing.
Okay.
So they're doing really great, and they are now introducing new EV charger stations, routers for internet, and many other things. So I think we will hear more and more from that company in Canada. Or,
Yeah.
for example, VPN services.
Mhm.
People who use that will definitely know the names NordVPN or Surfshark or other brands. This is Lithuanian company. For them, Canada is one of top 10 markets. I
Interesting.
would maybe even say top 5, but okay, let's say top 10 markets. And with current numbers are low. It's 150 million euros to both sides of trade. It's really low.
It is.
At the beginning of my term, I used to call it accidental trade, which happened by accident. Somebody just sold something, But there is a lot of room to expand those relationships, and I understand that in terms of distance for physical goods, there has to be market philosophy and logic to be
Yes.
exporting to one another. But there are those intellectual things which doesn't need to be exported, and that's why we are focusing on life sciences, ICT, financial technologies, defense industry, for example. Yes, you have big defense industry companies. We have small ones, but they are doing great components, which can be used and are used by other allies in their big, homemade equipment. So there is a room for expansion of this cooperation, and we are working on that.
Tell me the domestic economic situation in Lithuania. How is employment? How is inflation? How is GDP growth? How does that all look right now? Give an overview.
Yeah. So now for the first several months, we hear about possible coming recession.
Mhm.
But in general terms, first of all, Lithuania is a small country. It's 65,000 square kilometers. It's from capital to the seaside, which is
Yes.
almost the biggest distance is 300 kilometers. That's all we have.
Yeah.
So just for you to understand in what environment we operate. From Vilnius to Riga, capital of Latvia, it's 2-hour drive.
Yeah. That's not much.
Distances are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Our population is 2.8 million
Mhm.
in the country. GDP is recent numbers of last year or year before was 55 billion euros.
Okay.
With annual growth around 5%, real wage growth being 5 to 7%.
That's very good. Those numbers are good.
Yeah. Unemployment rates relatively low,
Mhm.
under 10% as usual. Inflation less than 5%. So really good numbers.
Mhm.
And but just to understand, we are part of European Union.
Yes.
We all have to fulfill budgetary criteria. We cannot be so. This is sustainable governance, and sustainable financial governance is the thing we do.
Yeah.
Our debt cannot be higher than some percentage. We cannot start spending public money on. So we are very, very well regulated, and it also, how is it called, fiscal discipline. So we are very disciplined, and so there's still a lot of room and potential for our economy to grow.
Yeah, I'm glad we're having the discussion, because I think you're doing an amazing job of selling Lithuania and reaching out and connecting with Canadian government leaders and business leaders and encouraging greater economic and commercial ties between the two countries. I think that's absolutely phenomenal what you're doing. And I understand now you're in your fourth year as ambassador, and your terms are usually about that length, aren't they? So you're doing such a wonderful job. I hope they keep you on here in Canada for much longer than
I
that.
still haven't received an invitation to come back home. So
okay, so they're
for
probably.
the moment I'm staying, but we are all
excellent. That's
as
wonderful.
as I call it, we are seasonal workers.
It's wonderful. But I just want to ask you as a final question: are there any closing messages? We have a lot of senior business people who view our broadcasts, and I just want to ask you, is there any specific closing message that you have to Canadian business leaders and frankly Canadians at large about Lithuania, about the relationship, about about the future, present and the future?
Yeah. So my message would be quite simple. I understand Canada's geographic position, and I understand that there is a very long tradition of doing business between Canada and US. But we all see what is happening in the world, and the civilized world needs more Canada. We need more Canadians doing things in Europe, and we are ready. We are ready to search for new connections, new relations, and new forms of cooperation. Or for Europeans, Canada as well is far away, but we already understand that we are all in this together. And the sooner we will start researching what are the opportunities, the sooner we will have something tangible in place, and the sooner we will be able to serve the world or our regions, our societies with better services, better products made in reliable countries, which are not using their taxes after getting that to start another war.
Right. Absolutely right. Well said. And Lithuania is a great tourism location too, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Everybody who comes, everybody who comes, they just love it.
They love it.
We have four seasons. We have lots of forests. We have lots of lakes. We have lots of really medieval castles, objects. Our culture and history is shaped during the centuries. Our capital Vilnius this year is celebrating 700 years. So many events are happening.
Wow.
Vilnius is location for upcoming NATO Summit in July.
Yes.
So we will, for the first time in history, we will have Canadian Prime Minister visiting Lithuania as well. And one more thing I haven't mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
This year is opening embassy. For the moment, Canada has office of the embassy in Vilnius.
Okay.
So this year, the upgrade will be happening, and it will be a full-fledged embassy, which again shows the growth of relations. and another milestone in our cooperation.
It certainly is. You are doing one fabulous job. I gotta hand it to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you.
Listen, this has been a great discussion. And I hope that we can have you back at some point in the very near future and continue it. But I do want to thank you so much. This was so interesting, and I know a lot of our viewers are going to find this very informative. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for having me. Great pleasure and honor to be part of this event, and looking forward.
Thank you. And so are we. And thank you to all of our viewers today for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again shortly at the Canada Economic Forum.